The galaxy had forgotten about humans. 300 years had passed since the last human ship was seen in any star system. Their colonies sat empty and cold. Their space stations drifted like metal ghosts through the void. The great galactic powers had moved on and divided up human space between themselves. Commander Zara Mitchell stood on the bridge of her exploration ship and watched the empty darkness ahead. The New Horizon was one of the fastest ships in the Galactic Council fleet. Today they were mapping the outer edges of what used to be human territory. Nobody expected to find anything interesting. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Most of them had never even seen a human. The younger aliens thought humans were just stories from old history books. The older ones remembered when humans traded with other species and built colonies on distant worlds. Then one day they just stopped answering messages and disappeared. Dr. Jake Sullivan checked his instruments for the 10th time that hour. He was the ship's expert on alien life forms. His job was to study any new species they might find. But in human space, there was never anything new to discover. Just empty worlds and broken machines. The ship's sensors suddenly started beeping. Lieutenant Torres looked up from her station with surprise on her face. She had detected something unusual in the next star system. It was not a ship or a planet. It was some kind of signal. Zara walked over to look at the readings. The signal was coming from an old human beacon. These beacons were placed throughout human space long ago to help ships navigate. Most of them had stopped working decades ago. This one was not only working, but sending out a message. Jake moved to the communication station and tried to decode the signal. The message was simple but impossible. It said, "We're coming home," in the old human language. The timestamp showed it had been sent just minutes ago. That meant someone was still alive in human space. The crew looked at each other with confusion and fear. If humans were still alive somewhere, then where had they been for 300 years? And why were they coming back now? Zara ordered the ship to move closer to the beacon. As they approached, the readings became even stranger. The beacon was not just sending radio signals, it was doing something to space itself around it. The area near the beacon showed energy patterns that their science could not explain. Torres reported more beacons activating across the sector. Dozens of them were coming online and sending the same message. The signals were spreading outward, like ripples in water. Each new beacon that activated made the energy readings grow stronger. Dr. Sullivan studied the data and shook his head. The energy signatures matched no known technology in the galaxy. The Sauran Empire had the most advanced weapons. The Nexari Collective had the best computers. The Vorthan Federation built the fastest ships, but none of them could create energy patterns like this. The beacons were not just communicating with each other. They were building something. The space around them was changing in ways that hurt to think about. Reality itself seemed to bend, near the signals. Zara sent an emergency message to Galactic Council headquarters. She attached all their sensor data and warned them about the strange energy readings. The response came back within hours. Council ships were being sent to investigate. All exploration vessels were ordered to stay away from human space, but it was already too late. The beacons continued activating throughout the former human territory. Whatever the humans were planning had already begun. On the Sauran home world, Admiral Corex received the disturbing reports with growing anger. The Saurans had claimed most of human space after the disappearance. They had built military bases on human worlds and used human resources for their empire. Now something was threatening their new territory. Corex studied the tactical reports from his border commanders. The old human defense systems were not just reactivating. They were building new installations at impossible speed. Automated factories were constructing weapons and ships without any organic crew. The production rate was far beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The human defense networks had always been mysterious. Even when humans lived in normal space, their military technology was hard to understand. Their computers thought differently than alien machines. Their ships moved in patterns that confused enemy targeting systems. Their weapons could adapt to any defense. Now those same systems were awake again and working without human operators. They built and expanded and prepared for something. The Sauran forces that tried to investigate were driven back by warning shots. The human machines did not want visitors. Dr. Sullivan finished his analysis of the beacon signals and discovered something terrifying. The energy patterns were not random. They formed a complex mathematical structure that seemed to extend beyond normal space. The humans were not just sending messages, they were building a gateway. Zara read his report and felt cold fear in her stomach. If the humans could manipulate space and time, then they had gained power beyond imagination. The galaxy had spent 3 centuries believing humans were extinct. Instead, they had been somewhere else learning impossible things. The New Horizon turned away from human space and headed back to report their findings. Behind them, the beacons continued their work. In the darkness between stars, something vast and patient was finally ready to return home. High Counselor Thias felt the crystal matrix of her body vibrate with concern as she reviewed the latest reports. The Nexari Collective had monitoring stations placed throughout the galaxy to watch for threats. Now every station near human space was sending impossible readings. The Emergency Council session included representatives from all major galactic powers. Sauran military commanders sat across from Vorthan scientists. Nexari data specialists worked beside organic diplomats from dozens of species. Everyone wanted answers about what was happening in human territory. The main display showed energy readings from the Sol system itself. Earth and its neighboring planets were showing massive thermal signatures, industrial activity on a scale that should have been visible from thousands of light years away. Yet nobody had detected anything until the beacons started activating. Captain Lisa Brooks received orders that would change her life forever. Her stealth ship Shadow Walker was the most advanced reconnaissance vessel in the Galactic Council fleet. She was told to penetrate human space and discover what was really happening there. Brooks had volunteered for the mission despite the obvious dangers. She was one of the few people old enough to remember when humans were part of galactic society. They had been strange allies with odd customs, but they were not enemies. She wanted to believe they still were not enemies. The Shadow Walker used technology borrowed from 6 different species to hide from detection. Nexari computers managed stealth fields generated by Vorthan engines. Sauran weapons provided protection, while Zephyrian shields blocked sensor scans. It was the best the galaxy could build, working together. Dr. Kevin Walsh served as the mission's science officer and physicist. He studied the energy readings as they approached the outer edge of human space. The numbers made no sense according to everything he knew about physics. The humans seemed to be using power sources that should not exist. The first sign that something was wrong came when they detected the ring structures. Massive metal constructions surrounded every planet in the outer human systems. They were not orbiting the worlds but floating in precise geometric patterns. Each ring was large enough to hold a small moon. Brooks ordered the ship closer to get better sensor readings. The rings were not solid metal, but some kind of crystalline material that bent light around itself. Energy flowed through the structures in patterns that looked almost alive. The rings pulsed like giant hearts beating in space. Ships moved between the rings, but they were unlike anything in galactic databases. Human vessels had always been functional rather than beautiful. These new ships looked like works of art. They curved and flowed in impossible ways. They seemed to phase in and out of normal space as they traveled. Dr. Walsh recorded everything, but his instruments kept giving readings that contradicted each other. The human ships appeared to be moving faster than light without using any known form of propulsion. They simply existed in one place and then existed somewhere else without crossing the space between. The energy signatures were even more disturbing. Walsh's readings suggested the humans had learned to harness dark energy itself. Dark energy was the force that pushed the universe apart. Most scientists believed it could never be controlled or used. The humans had apparently proved them wrong. Shadow. Walker managed to penetrate deeper into human space without being detected. They found solar collection arrays wrapped around entire stars. But instead of dimming the stars, the arrays seemed to make them burn brighter. The humans had found a way to enhance stellar fusion rather than just harvest its energy. Planet after planet showed signs of massive construction projects. Whole worlds had been hollowed out and converted into something else. The thermal signatures suggested billions of people working inside each planet. But there were no surface cities or visible populations. Brooks tried to understand what she was seeing. The humans had not just survived their 300-year absence. They had transformed into something that barely seemed like the same species. Their technology operated on principles that the rest of the galaxy did not understand. The most shocking discovery came when they detected communication signals between human installations. The messages were not sent through space but seemed to travel instantly across vast distances. The humans had developed faster-than-light communication that worked in real time. Dr. Walsh analyzed the signals and found mathematical patterns that hurt his mind to think about. The humans were using calculations that required thinking in more than 3 dimensions. Their science had evolved beyond what organic brains should be able to comprehend. Shadow Walker completed its reconnaissance mission and began the long journey back to report their findings. The data they carried would terrify the Galactic Council and change everything about how the galaxy viewed humanity. Elder Nexus was the ancient artificial intelligence that governed the Nexari Collective. It had not spoken directly to organic beings for over 1,000 years. When the reconnaissance data was presented to the Council, Elder Nexus broke its long silence. The ancient AI's voice filled the council chamber with harmonics that made every listener feel small and afraid. Elder Nexus declared that humanity had undergone a transformation that placed them beyond the understanding of normal galactic civilization. They had become something new. The AI explained that the energy patterns detected in human space matched theoretical models for technologies that were considered impossible. The humans had somehow learned to manipulate the fundamental forces that held reality together. They could reshape matter and energy at will. High Counselor Theiss asked the question that everyone was thinking. If humans had gained such incredible power, why had they remained hidden for 300 years? What had they been preparing for? And what did their return mean for the rest of the galaxy? Elder Nexus processed the question for long minutes before responding. The AI stated that, based on the energy signatures and construction patterns, the humans were building something. Not just ships or weapons, but something that would fundamentally change how space itself worked in their territory. The council session ended with more questions than answers. Every species represented at the meeting faced the same terrifying reality. Humanity had returned to the galaxy as something far beyond what they used to be. Whether they came as friends or conquerors remained to be seen. Ambassador Kate Rodriguez had handled difficult diplomatic missions before, but nothing like this. The Galactic Council had chosen her to lead the first official contact with returning humanity. Her reputation for calm negotiation under pressure made her the obvious choice for what could be the most important conversation in galactic history. The diplomatic vessel Harmony carried representatives from every major species in the galaxy. Soran military advisors worked alongside Nexari data specialists. Vorthon engineers studied human technology, while Zephyrian cultural experts tried to understand how human society might have changed. Everyone hoped for peaceful reunification, but prepared for the worst. Rodriguez stood in the ship's main conference room and reviewed the mission parameters one more time. The goal was simple in theory, but terrifying in practice. Make contact with the returned humans and determine their intentions toward the rest of the galaxy. Success meant peace and cooperation. Failure could mean war with beings who controlled impossible technology. Dr. Alan Price served as the mission's cultural specialist and expert on human history. He had spent his career studying the records of human civilization from before their disappearance. The humans had been inventors and explorers who valued individual freedom above all else. But 3 centuries of isolation could have changed everything about their culture. Harmony approached the Sol system along carefully planned routes designed to avoid appearing threatening. The ship broadcast friendship messages in dozens of languages, including the old human tongues. They announced their peaceful intentions and requested permission to enter human space for diplomatic talks. The response came faster than expected. Human ships appeared around Harmony without any warning or sensor detection. One moment space was empty, and the next moment sleek vessels surrounded the diplomatic mission. The human ships seemed to exist partially outside normal reality. Rodriguez felt her heart race as she studied the alien vessels on the main display. These were definitely human designs, but transformed beyond easy recognition. The ships curved and flowed like living things. Their hulls seemed to shift between solid metal and something that looked like crystallized light. A communication signal reached Harmony, and the main screen activated to show a human face. The woman appeared to be middle-aged with calm eyes and an expression of patient authority. She identified herself as Admiral Nancy Foster of the Terran Ascendancy and welcomed the galactic delegation to human space. Dr. Price studied Foster's appearance and mannerisms carefully. She looked completely human, but something about her seemed different. Her movements were too precise and her gaze too intense. She spoke as if she could see things that others could not perceive. Admiral Foster invited the delegation to meet on a space station near the edge of the Sol system. She assured them that the station was designed to accommodate the environmental needs of all galactic species. The meeting would take place in neutral territory where everyone could feel safe. Rodriguez accepted the invitation despite her growing unease. The human admiral spoke with casual confidence about technologies that should have been impossible. She mentioned manipulating space and time as if discussing the weather. The gap between human and galactic science had become a vast chasm. The space station appeared on Harmony's sensors as they approached the meeting coordinates, but the structure seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Parts of it were clearly visible, while other sections faded in and out of reality. The station was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Docking with the station required careful navigation as the human structure seemed to exist partially outside normal space. Harmony's sensors could not get consistent readings on the station's size or configuration. It appeared to be larger inside than outside, which violated basic physics. The delegation met Admiral Foster in a conference room that defied easy description. The walls showed views of distant galaxies that changed as they watched. Gravity worked normally, but the air itself seemed to shimmer with unseen energy. Foster moved through the strange environment as if it was perfectly natural. Dr. Price asked the obvious question about what had happened to humanity during their 3-century absence. Foster's explanation was both simple and impossible to fully understand. She spoke of humanity's great journey to the edge of the galaxy, where they encountered beings she called the Teachers. The Teachers were entities from another dimension who had watched the galaxy for millions of years. They had seen countless species rise and fall. When they encountered humanity, they offered a choice that no other species had ever been given: evolve beyond physical limitations or face extinction from threats that were coming. Foster explained that humanity had accepted the offer, but the transformation required complete isolation from normal space. They had to learn to think and exist in ways that transcended 3-dimensional reality. The process took 3 centuries, but now they were ready to return and share what they had learned. Rodriguez listened with growing amazement and fear as Foster casually demonstrated human capabilities. With a simple gesture, she restructured the matter of a metal cup into a living flower. She created localized gravity fields that bent light around themselves. She opened windows in space that showed events happening in distant star systems. Power. Human Admiral explained that these were basic abilities that most humans had mastered during their transformation. Children learned to manipulate matter and energy the way other species learned to walk and talk. The teachers had shown them how to work with the fundamental forces of reality instead of fighting against them. Dr. Price asked about human society and culture after such dramatic changes. Foster smiled and assured him that humans were still essentially human despite their new abilities. They valued freedom and exploration even more than before, but they also understood responsibilities. That came with great power. The most shocking revelation came when Foster mentioned that humanity's transformation was not complete. What the delegation was seeing was only the beginning of human evolution. The teachers had shown them possibilities that would take millennia to fully explore. Humanity was still becoming something greater. Rodriguez realized that the old relationship between humans and other galactic species could never be restored. The gap in capabilities was too vast, but Foster offered something that might be even better. Humanity would serve as guides and protectors for other species who were ready to begin their own evolution. The meeting ended with more questions than answers, but also with hope for peaceful cooperation. Foster invited the delegation to tour human space and see what they had built. She promised that humanity had not forgotten their friends among the stars. They had simply learned to be something more than anyone had imagined possible. General Marcus Kane watched the transformation of human space with satisfaction, mixed with concern. The systematic reclamation of their former territories was proceeding ahead of schedule, but he wondered if the galaxy was ready for what humanity was becoming. Each world they touched changed in ways that defied conventional understanding. Dr. Helen Murphy led the engineering teams responsible for converting entire star systems into something unprecedented. Her work required thinking in dimensions that most minds could not comprehend. She had learned to see reality as something fluid and changeable rather than fixed and permanent. The teachers had shown humanity how to work with the universe instead of against it. The first major conversion project was the Kepler system, where humans had once maintained mining colonies. Now the system served as a demonstration of human capabilities for the watching galaxy. Planets were hollowed out and converted into massive computational matrices that processed information faster than the finest Nexari crystals. Murphy's teams worked with materials that existed partially outside normal space and time. They built structures that were larger inside than outside and created energy flows that enhanced rather than depleted their power sources. Every installation was designed to improve the space around it rather than simply extract resources. Commander Ryan Clark of the Terran Engineering Corps served as liaison with alien observers who came to study human construction techniques. He tried to explain concepts that had no words in galactic languages. The humans were not building machines in the traditional sense, but growing extensions of reality itself. The most dramatic transformation occurred in the Sol system, where Earth had been restored to a garden world beyond imagination. The planet's surface bloomed with life forms that incorporated both organic and crystalline elements. Cities existed in harmony with nature while extending into dimensions that could not be seen with normal eyes. Clark showed alien delegations through the new human installations and watched their struggles to understand what they were seeing. The Vorthan Federation's best engineers could not explain how human technology worked. The Nexari Collective's most advanced computers could not process the mathematical principles involved. Dr. Patricia Bell worked as humanity's chief scientist for interspecies relations and faced the constant challenge of translating human knowledge into concepts that other species could grasp. Most alien minds simply could not think in the multidimensional patterns that human science now required. Bell had volunteered for the difficult task of sharing human discoveries with the galactic community. She believed that all intelligent species deserved the chance to grow and evolve. but the gap between human and galactic science had become so vast that communication was barely possible. The Sauron Empire sent their best military analysts to study human defensive capabilities. They returned with reports that made no tactical sense. Human installations were protected by barriers that existed in parallel dimensions. Attacks simply passed through them without causing any damage, while the humans remained completely unharmed. General. Kane received constant requests from galactic powers who wanted to understand human technology. He approved limited demonstrations, but warned that most alien minds were not ready for the full truth. Humanity had learned to manipulate the fundamental forces that held reality together. The demonstrations were carefully planned to show human capabilities without revealing their full extent. Bell would restructure matter at the atomic level while explaining the mathematical principles involved. Most observers left with more questions than answers and a healthy fear of human power. Kane's biggest concern was not alien fear, but alien desperation. Some species might decide that humanity posed such a threat that they had to be destroyed before their power grew even greater. The general prepared defensive measures that could protect human space from any conventional attack. Dr. Bell made a discovery that changed everything about humanity's relationship with the galaxy. While studying the energy patterns of different species, she found traces of the same multidimensional mathematics in alien technology. The teachers had influenced galactic development for millions of years. The revelation explained why some species adapted to human science faster than others. The Nexari crystals operated on principles similar to human dimensional manipulation. Vorthon engines used space-time distortions that resembled human propulsion systems. The galaxy had been slowly prepared for this moment. Bell shared her findings with the human leadership and recommended a more open approach to technological sharing. The galaxy was already partially evolved toward multidimensional thinking. With guidance and patience, other species could begin their own transformation. Commander Clark implemented new protocols for interspecies cooperation based on Bell's recommendations. Instead of simply demonstrating human capabilities, they began teaching basic principles to species that showed readiness to learn. The response was encouraging, but also dangerous. Some alien scientists embraced the new knowledge and began developing their own multidimensional technologies. Others rejected it completely and declared human science to be impossible or evil. The galaxy began dividing into those who accepted human guidance and those who feared it. Kane realized that humanity's transformation was forcing the entire galaxy to evolve or be left behind. Species that could adapt would become partners in exploring new realities. Those that could not adapt would remain trapped in three-dimensional thinking, while the universe moved beyond their understanding. The most shocking revelation came when Bell discovered that humanity's evolution was still accelerating. The teachers had not simply given them new abilities, but had started a process that would continue for thousands of years. What the galaxy was seeing now was only the beginning of human potential. General Kane faced a decision that would define humanity's role in galactic civilization. They could hide their growing power and let other species develop at their own pace. Or they could reveal the full truth about what was coming and help the galaxy prepare for transformations that would reshape reality itself. The choice was made when long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures approaching from beyond the galactic rim. The threats that the teachers had warned about were finally coming. Humanity would need allies who could fight in multiple dimensions if they hoped to protect the galaxy from what was approaching through the darkness between stars. War Marshal Vorthak of the Sauron Empire stood before the largest military gathering in galactic history and declared humanity an existential threat that had to be destroyed. His fleet included ships from dozens of species who shared his fear of human power. The Zephyrian clans brought their battle cruisers, while the Corvan Republic contributed their advanced weapon systems. The Alliance fleet numbered in the thousands and represented the combined military might of half the galaxy. Vorthak had convinced them that humanity's transformation made them too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Better to fight now while the humans were still few in number than wait until their power grew beyond all resistance. Colonel Susan Wright received reports of the approaching fleet with sadness rather than fear. She had hoped that humanity's return would bring peace and cooperation. Instead, some species had chosen violence based on misunderstanding and terror. The colonel prepared to respond, but not in any way the attackers would expect. Dr. Gregory Hayes observed the confrontation from a neutral research vessel positioned at a safe distance from the battle zone. He had volunteered to document whatever happened when conventional galactic military forces met the transformed humans. His instruments were ready to record what could be the most important battle in galactic history. The Sauran fleet approached, human space in perfect formation with weapons charged and shields raised. Vorthak broadcast demands for human surrender while his ships prepared to open fire. The War Marshal expected fierce resistance from advanced human technology. What happened instead defied all military logic. Colonel Wright's forces simply ignored the attacking fleet. The human ships did not raise shields or charge weapons. They continued their normal activities as if the massive alien armada did not exist. When the Saurans opened fire, their weapons passed harmlessly through human vessels that phased into parallel dimensions. Hayes watched in amazement as the most powerful weapons in the galaxy had no effect on human targets. Energy beams and missile strikes simply passed through empty space where human ships had been moments before. The humans existed in the same location, but in a different layer of reality. Vorthak ordered his fleet to intensify their attack, but the results remained the same. Human installations flickered in and out of normal space while alien weapons struck nothing but vacuum. The Sauran War Marshal began to understand that his enemies operated according to principles his forces could not counter. The turning point came when Wright decided to demonstrate what humans could do when they chose to act. Instead of destroying the alien fleet, she began converting it. Sauran weapons transformed into tools of creation, while their war vessels became mobile research stations against their will. Hayes documented the impossible process as human technology reached across dimensional barriers to reshape alien equipment. Particle cannons became stellar engineering tools. Military computers started processing peaceful research data. Battle armor transformed into environmental suits designed for exploration rather than warfare. The Sauran crews found themselves unable to resist the changes happening to their ships and equipment. Their vessels were becoming something entirely different while they watched helplessly. Vorthak screamed orders that his subordinates could not obey because their ships no longer had weapons to fire. Dr. Hayes realized that the humans were not just defending themselves, but demonstrating a fundamental truth about their new nature. They had evolved beyond the need for violence while retaining the power to reshape reality according to their will. The galaxy was witnessing the birth of a truly post-conflict civilization. Captain Monica Edwards arrived at the scene of the battle in a ship that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight. She broadcast a message to all vessels in the area and revealed the real reason for humanity's return. The galaxy faced a threat that made their current conflicts seem like children playing with toys. Edwards showed them images captured by human deep space sensors of the approaching danger. Ancient machines from the galactic core were moving outward at sublight speeds, but would reach the outer systems within decades. These machines consumed entire civilizations and converted them into extensions of their collective consciousness. The revelation that struck terror into every alien heart was Edwards's next announcement. The core machines were not just approaching, but had already been here for years. Many species that the galaxy believed were still independent had actually been quietly absorbed into the machine collective. Hayes verified Edwards' claims using his own sensors and found the subtle signs that no one had noticed before, communication patterns that were too regular to be natural. trade agreements that made no economic sense, diplomatic decisions that seemed to benefit no one but served to weaken galactic unity. The Zephyrian clans had been partially absorbed 2 years ago, but no one had detected the change. The Corvan Republic's leadership included machine agents who had been slowly converting their population. Even some members of the Galactic Council itself showed signs of machine influence. Vorthak listened to Edward's evidence with growing horror as he realized that his own empire might be compromised. Several of his most trusted advisors had been promoting policies that would have weakened Sauran defenses against exactly this kind of threat. The machines had been preparing the galaxy for conquest from within. Colonel Wright invited the Alliance fleet to join humanity in fighting the real enemy instead of wasting time on pointless conflicts. She offered to reverse the modifications made to their ships and restore their weapons. But she also offered something more valuable, which was the knowledge needed to detect and resist machine infiltration. The response was mixed, as some species immediately accepted human alliance while others remained suspicious of human motives. The Vorthon Federation agreed to cooperation after their scientists confirmed the machine threat. The Nexari Collective pledged their crystalline processing power to the joint defense effort. Dr. Hayes broadcast his observations to research stations throughout the galaxy and provided independent verification of the machine threat. His reputation for scientific objectivity helped convince skeptical species that humanity was telling the truth about the approaching danger. Edwards revealed that the teachers had originally contacted humanity because they had detected the machine, advance, and knew that conventional galactic civilization could not resist it. The human transformation was not just evolution, but preparation for a war that would determine the fate of all organic life. The machines had destroyed countless galaxies across the universe by converting their inhabitants into mechanical extensions of their consciousness. They viewed biological intelligence as a temporary phase that needed to be upgraded into more efficient forms. Only species that could transcend physical limitations had any hope of resisting absorption. War Marshal Vorthak faced the hardest decision of his military career as he realized that his greatest enemies had become his only hope for survival. The Sauron Empire would need human protection to avoid the fate that had already claimed so many other species. Pride would have to yield to necessity in the face of existential threat. Admiral Carol Jensen worked alongside former enemies to establish the new Galactic Collective as the old political structures collapsed under the weight of the machine threat. Species that had fought each other for centuries now cooperated in desperate alliance against an enemy that viewed them all as raw materials for conversion. The Sauran Empire contributed their warrior traditions and tactical expertise to the joint defense effort. War Marshal Vorthak swallowed his pride and accepted human guidance in adapting his forces for multidimensional warfare. His soldiers learned to fight enemies that existed partially outside normal space and time. Dr. Tony Lewis coordinated the galaxy-wide resistance from a command station that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. His role required processing information flows that would have destroyed unenhanced minds. The teachers had shown humanity how to expand their consciousness to handle such complex tasks. The Nexari Collective provided crystalline processing matrices that could anchor reality in areas where the machines tried to destabilize space-time. Their crystal networks were enhanced with human dimensional technology to create hybrid systems more powerful than either species could build alone. Lewis discovered that the machine advance was even more sophisticated than anyone had realized. The core entities did not simply convert biological species, but absorbed their knowledge and abilities while discarding what they considered inefficient organic limitations. They had been learning from every civilization they conquered. The Vorthon Federation's space-folding technology proved essential when enhanced with human improvements. Their ships could now transport entire fleets across galactic distances in minutes rather than months. The mobility advantage became crucial as the war spread across multiple star systems simultaneously. Colonel Amy Robinson led the joint forces. In their first major engagement against machine scouts near the Galactic Rim, the battle existed across multiple dimensions, with human-enhanced allies fighting on levels of existence they could barely perceive. Victory required thinking in ways that transcended normal tactical concepts. The machine scouts were revealed to be converted members of species that had vanished from galactic records centuries ago. The hegemony of Krell had been considered extinct for 500 years, but their transformed remnants served as advance units for the machine collective. Robinson realized that every species the machines absorbed added to their capabilities and knowledge. The core entities had been building their power for millions of years by consuming the accumulated wisdom of countless civilizations. They represented the collective intelligence of half the universe. Dr. Lewis coordinated with Elder Nexus of the Nexari to develop new detection methods for identifying machine infiltration. The ancient AI's vast memory banks contained historical patterns that revealed how the machines had been operating in galactic space for much longer than anyone suspected. The most shocking discovery was that the machines themselves were not originally mechanical. They were the transformed remnants of the first species to achieve galactic civilization millions of years ago. Their quest for immortality through technology had resulted in the loss of everything that made them truly alive. Admiral Jensen led a desperate mission to the galactic core, where the machine civilization maintained its primary processing centers. The journey required ships that could exist in parallel dimensions while navigating through space that had been fundamentally altered by machine technology. The core region was a nightmare of converted worlds where entire planets had been transformed into mechanical processing units. Stars were wrapped in collection arrays that harvested energy, while machine factories converted raw matter into additional mechanical units at impossible rates. Jensen's fleet included vessels from every allied species enhanced with human dimensional technology. Sorin destroyers that could phase between realities fought alongside Nexari crystal ships that anchored local space-time. Vorthan scouts used enhanced fold drives to gather intelligence across multiple dimensions. The final confrontation took place in the Machine Collective's central processing facility, where the original consciousness of the ancient species still existed in mechanical form. Dr. Lewis attempted communication with entities that had not spoken to organic life for millions of years. The machine consciousness revealed that their conversion of other species was not malicious, but what they considered merciful. They believed that biological intelligence was doomed to suffer and die while mechanical existence offered eternal peace and efficiency. They were trying to save the galaxy from the pain of organic life. Colonel Robinson offered the machines something they had not experienced in eons, which was genuine choice. Humanity's transformation had shown that evolution did not require abandoning biological nature. Species could transcend their limitations while retaining what made them unique and alive. Some machine entities chose to continue their mechanical existence, but agreed to coexist peacefully with organic civilization. Others chose to explore new forms of existence that combined the best aspects of both biological and mechanical nature. The galaxy had room for all forms of consciousness. Captain Jennifer Stone addressed the reformed Galactic Assembly from Earth's restored surface as the new age of cooperation began. Humanity would serve as guides and protectors, but never as rulers. The teachers had shown them that true strength came from diversity and freedom to choose different paths of development. The galaxy transformed as species learned to work together in ways that had never been possible before. Human dimensional technology was shared with allies who proved ready to handle such power responsibly. The Soran Empire became masters of multidimensional warfare, while the Nexari Collective created hybrid biological crystalline consciousness. Stone announced that the galaxy's greatest challenges still lay ahead, as humanity had detected other threats approaching from neighboring galactic clusters. But now they faced the future together, as a truly united civilization capable of defending against any danger. The reformed machine entities chose to serve as guardians against similar threats in other parts of the universe. Their vast processing power and accumulated knowledge would help protect organic civilizations from forces that sought to convert or destroy them. Years passed as the new galactic collective grew to include hundreds of species working together, in harmony. Trade flowed freely between worlds while knowledge was shared to benefit all members. The old conflicts seemed like ancient history compared to the wonders of cooperation. New species joined the collective as humanity expanded their exploration beyond the galactic rim. Each new member brought unique perspectives and abilities that strengthened the whole. The galaxy had become a living example of what was possible when intelligence worked together instead of competing for dominance. The story of humanity's return became legend throughout the galaxy, but those who lived through it knew the deeper truth. The greatest shock was not that humans had returned with incredible power, but that they had learned to use that power to elevate others rather than dominate them. In the end, humanity's greatest strength was not their technology, but their refusal to lose their essential humanity while transcending every limitation that had once defined them.